Okay, let's dig into this. We have a set of source materials today that frankly is massive. We're doing a deep dive into what might be one of the most comprehensive and frankly surprising self-improvement systems we've ever come across.
It's a pretty wild collection of texts.
Mhm.
This whole system is laid out across, social media posts, plans for websites, and is all tied to Mahmoud Ghazal and this service brand Sosnazni.
Right, and as you start to sort of piece it together, you've got these personal handles like at Human4B, the work account at Sosnazni, and then this block of text they call COEE, which is, the posted text. You realize you're not just looking at tips.
No, not at all. You're looking at a complete unified philosophy. It doesn't just promise to, fix your sleep schedule. It promises to fix, well, humanity.
Exactly. And that's why we need to be really structured today. The source context comes from those handles, mentions of future websites like sosnaz.com. And you use the right word, unified, because the claims jump from, say, personal diet to global peace.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and that's our mission for this deep dive, especially for you, the learner. We need to try and pull out the core philosophy, the essential logic, and then map out the just huge range of skills this system promises.
Mm-hmm.
We have to find the thread that connects, regulating your food intake with achieving spiritual miracles.
Or fixing your singing voice with improving a country's army. I mean, it's trying to categorize all this felt like a puzzle.
It is.
So we're going to start from the inside with the self, the internal architecture, and then we're going to see how this whole philosophy scales up from, helping a pro athlete to programming the entire global mind for peace.
Absolutely. You have to start with that bedrock philosophy. Otherwise, all the skill claims that come later, they're just going to sound random and unbelievable.
So let's start there. Let's introduce the key players and the core belief that holds this entire Sosnazni system together.
Sounds good.
All right, so let's set the stage. Who are the plays in these documents? First, you got the individual, Mahmoud Ghazal. He's connected to that personal handle at Human4B. This feels like the voice of the founder, the originator.
Yeah, and you can sort of feel a difference between that voice and the more formalized service brand, which is Sosnazni, that's tied to the work account at Sosnazni.
Right.
So it feels like you have the founder, who is the philosophy,
Yeah.
and then you have Sosnazni, which is the delivery system, the tech, maybe.
Okay, so here's where it gets really specific right from the start. The material lays down a rule, a prerequisite for even starting. It's all about personal, radical self-responsibility. And it repeats this crucial line, you are your first doctor.
And that phrase it's really empowering, but it also puts a huge amount of weight on you, the individual.
Yeah.
It's saying you're the one who has to diagnose the problem, you're the one who has to find the cure, and you're the one who has to apply the treatment.
And it doesn't stop there. It doubles down with, you are the only one who can offer you help. I mean, that just completely reframes the whole self-help dynamic.
It really does. It gets rid of any idea that you can just, outsource your own well-being or your own transformation to someone else.
So it's not like a typical coaching model.
Not at all. A lot of coaching or therapy can, sometimes accidentally create a kind of dependency. Sosnazni, in the source text, just rejects that model completely.
Yeah.
It positions the provider, Sosnazni itself, as, what does it say?
Just an aid. It says, I am only an aid for you.
Right, an aid. So all the heavy lifting, 100% of it, is still on you. That's the first thing you have to absorb before you go any further with this system.
So if the individual is the engine for all this change, what's the ultimate power source? What makes it possible? And the source material immediately brings in a spiritual foundation. The whole thing is centered on a connection to Allah.
And that spiritual anchor isn't just like a footnote. It's the absolute core of the whole thing. It's the reference point for the perfection that the system is aiming for.
The language it uses to describe this it's very detailed.
It is. It says, Allah is fully of perfect on manners and prestige and greatness and beautiful and freedom.
So what's the function of that level of detail and what's supposed to be a skill system?
Well, it defines the target. It sets the ideal you're aspiring to. If the ultimate reality is defined by perfection, by prestige, by freedom, then the whole point of the Sosnazni system is to align yourself, your personal software, with those exact qualities.
I see.
You kind of need that ultimate spiritual reference point to even justify the incredible scale of what they're claiming to do. From fixing overthinking all the way to creating global peace. The idea is that true mastery comes from aligning your personal self with that ultimate perfection.
Okay, so we have individual responsibility as the engine, spiritual alignment as the destination.
Right.
But where does the actual work start? Where do you begin?
And that brings us to what is maybe the key philosophical maxim in the entire system. It's summed up in one simple phrase: build your ideas before building muscles.
Build your ideas before building muscles. That feels like the key that unlocks everything else.
It is. It tells you the order of operations. It dictates the priority. Any physical or external change, the muscles, is secondary. It might even be impossible if the internal structure, the ideas, is flawed.
So this isn't just like think positive.
No, it's much deeper than that. It's about architectural integrity. It's about the blueprints of your mind.
Okay, so let's make that practical. Let's use the example they give later. Say I'm a professional football player and I want to improve my motion.
Right. Conventional training would have you focusing on biomechanics, on drills, on muscle groups, physical repetition.
But the Sosnozny philosophy would say, what?
It would suggest that if that footballer has, say, weak thinking, like a limiting belief that they can't run faster, or a subconscious fear of getting injured again, then it doesn't matter how much physical training they do, they'll never reach their peak.
So the flawed idea is like a speed limiter on an engine.
Exactly. You have to fix the internal software first. The ideas, the thinking, the feelings, the beliefs. That's the absolute prerequisite for any real lasting result, whether that result is a better football kick, a better singing voice, or, world peace.
And the source says the fun starts from fixing your ideas.
Right, and that fun is really about efficiency. To stick with the computer metaphor, if you have buggy software in your head, you get cognitive crashes. Things like overthinking, indecision, negative spirals. Fixing your ideas is like debugging your own operating system. It lets your potential run at full speed without all that mental noise that holds you back.
This focus on the internal architecture leads us right into the structure of the service itself. How does this philosophy actually become a repeatable service you can buy?
It's laid out as a very clear three-part process. It's iterative. And it's really important for the learner to grasp this because it shows your role is ongoing. The process is 1, learning, 2, following results, and 3, fixing results.
Learning, following, fixing. So you learn the new ideas, you apply them, and then you have to track what actually happens.
Exactly. You have to be ruthlessly honest in that following results phase. Did the new ideas actually work? Did they get you the outcome you wanted?
And if they didn't, you move to step 3, fixing results.
Right. And the mechanism for that fixing, for that course correction, is described as very interactive. It reinforces that aid status we talked about. The source says improvement happens by advice, questions, and answers from me and you.
So it's a dialogue. It's a conversation.
100%. It's a mutual process of refinement.
Yeah.
The provider gives you the intellectual tools, the framework, but you, the individual, have to engage, ask questions, report back on what's working and what isn't. It's personalized, and it has to be. If you're fixing something as complex as a person's individual ideas and feelings.
The learning never ends. The fixing never ends.
Exactly, and that's a crucial piece of context for what we're going to talk about later with the global mission.
Okay, I think we've got the foundation down. Radical self-responsibility, a spiritual anchor in perfection, and a priority on intellectual architecture. So now we get to the truly staggering part, the menu, the 10 categories of skills that this foundation is supposed to build.
And this is where the sheer scale of the Sosnozny claims can become, well, a bit overwhelming. The logic is, if they can fix your ideas, then the number of things they can apply that fix to is basically limitless.
Right. It goes from the intensely personal to the strategically global.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so we're moving to the stack of 10 skills, and the range is just.
Yeah.
It's hard to process that the same core philosophy is being applied across all of these. So at the very top, the spiritual domain. It's broken into 2 very distinct categories.
Right. Skill number 1 is the baseline. It's called public relationship without miracles with Allah.
The wording there is so specific. Public relationship, that suggests, the common, visible, maybe conventional spiritual practices. Prayer, devotion, moral living, the things most people would recognize as a spiritual life.
It's mastery, but without demanding the supernatural. It's accessible.
And that sets up the massive contrast with skill number 2. Private relationship with miracles by Allah as prophets.
And this is where the system just completely shatters the mold of any typical self-help program or even most religious instruction.
We have to spend a minute here. This is a monumental claim. Comparing the user to prophets and explicitly promising miracles. I mean, this takes the system into a realm of what? Ultimate spiritual power.
It does. And the question it forces you to ask is, what's the mechanism here? How does the system propose to turn your internal spiritual alignment into an actual physical external miracle.
Right.
And because the whole system is built on this foundation of fixing ideas and this natural intelligence, or nigh, that we'll get to, the implied mechanism has to be that your psychological and spiritual state becomes so perfectly aligned with that divine ideal, that perfection, prestige, and freedom, that physical reality actually starts to conform to it.
So it's not just about feeling at peace. It's about commanding results.
It's about commanding results through that ultimate connection. The system is essentially selling access to what it frames as a maybe even historical level of spiritual achievement. For you, the learner, this claim positions Sosnasni as a kind of ultimate system. It's not just promising improvement, it's promising transformation on a prophetic scale.
Wow. Okay, so that's the ultimate application. The idea that if your mind is perfected, you can influence reality itself.
That's the implication. The private relationship is that deep, individual connection that unlocks this miraculous potential.
Okay, so from that highest spiritual plane, the system then comes back down to earth. It focuses on building the individual. Let's look at skill number 4, skills for build personality.
This makes perfect sense in their framework. Your personality is just the external expression of your fixed ideas. If the ideas are the blueprints, your personality is the finished building.
So this is about integrating all those psychological fixes into a coherent, stable self.
Exactly. It's about conscious self-construction. Building a personality that can handle internal stress and external pressure because its foundation, its ideas, are sound.
And skill 5 deals directly with the consequences of not having that sound foundation, release from psychological or physical diseases.
And this powerfully connects your physical health and your mental state directly back to the quality of your ideas. It's that you are your first doctor, philosophy in action.
The source is actually really specific about the method for doing this. It's not just one thing, it's a combination of 3 approaches.
It is. First, it says it will teach the individual how to ask Allah. That's the spiritual part. Second, it involves simple motions. That's the physical part. And third, it introduces new psychological skills. That's the mental part.
That combination is fascinating. It implies you can't solve a deep-seated physical or psychological issue with just one approach. You have to address your spiritual connection, your physical habits, and your underlying thought patterns all at the same time.
All right, and let's focus on those new psychological skills for a second. The source gives us a whole list of the cognitive traps it claims to free you from.
Yeah, it lists stereotypical skills, overthinking, weak thinking, and negative feelings or ideas.
Overthinking is probably the one everyone can relate to. It's that classic modern problem, right? The mental hamster wheel that stops you from making a decision. It's like a computer processor just maxing out and crashing.
Totally. And what about weak thinking?
Weak thinking suggests, mental inefficiency, relying on bad mental models, not being able to process things clearly. The system is aimed at trimming away all of that cognitive deadwood, all those negative loops, to leave you with a clean, high-performance mind.
And it also says it releases you from stereotypical skills. That's an interesting one. It's not just about getting rid of negative thinking, but also average thinking.
That's a great way to put it. It's about moving beyond just the standard default mental habits towards something more unique, more creative, more powerful.
Okay, let's shift to the more practical day-to-day stuff. Skill 7 is skills for regularize your food, drink, and sleep.
And this is a really important grounding element. Despite all the huge claims about miracles and armies, Sosnasni recognizes that you can't have high-level performance if your basic biology is a mess.
It even says, personally, I will regularize your food and drink.
Right. So it's showing that mastery has to start with mastering your plate and your pillow. You can't sustain anything else otherwise.
And from there, it moves outward to our interactions. Skill 8, skills for improved relationships between people.
And the list of targets here is, again, comprehensive. It covers wife, husband, kids, friend, girlfriend, people, basically everyone.
So if we look at this through that core lens of fixing ideas, improving our relationship with your spouse means fixing the flawed ideas you have about them or about yourself in that relationship.
Exactly. It means getting rid of the weak thinking that leads to arguments, or the stereotypical skills you might use for resolving conflict that just don't work. By fixing the internal software, the external relationship automatically improves. It's the core principle applied to your social life.
Okay, now we get to the part of the program that takes a really sharp, unexpected turn. This is where it demonstrates its claim of universal applicability. Skill number 3, skills for professional groups.
And this list is incredibly broad. It explicitly says it can help footballers, sports players, actors, singers, and all jobs or works.
That last part, all jobs or works, that's the key. It's a signal that the system believes its psychological framework can be applied to literally any kind of human performance.
Hmm.
It gets specific with athletics, promising to improve your motion for athletes as football players and other players. But this is where you have to ask, if the focus is on ideas, how does that work? Where's the line between fixing your thoughts and the pure physical training you need?
That is the core question. If a footballer has poor motion, is it because they have a physical injury? Or is it because their cognitive system is failing to correctly execute the perfect motion? So Zelazny implies it's the latter, or at least that the psychological blocks are the main thing holding them back.
So they're not training the muscle, they're training the idea of the perfect motion in your head.
Precisely. They're removing the mental interference so the body can do what it's physically capable of. And it's the same logic for artists, with the claim to improve your voice and motion for singing and acting.
I mean, improving your voice by fixing your ideas, that's a pretty novel concept.
It suggests that things like stage fright, tension, lack of belief, these psychological factors are what limit a voice. So if you fix the underlying weak thinking, you could, in theory, unlock the voice's natural resonance and control without needing traditional vocal lessons.
But the absolute peak of this universal claim, this is skill number 6, skills for improve armies of countries.
This is the claim that really forces you, the learner, to grapple with the extreme scope of this system. We have gone from fixing an individual's diet to improving a nation's military.
So how? If we apply the same foundational philosophy, what does that even mean?
It suggests that an army, which is just a massive organization of human minds, suffers from the same kinds of cognitive flaws that an individual does.
So what would weak thinking or stereotypical skills look like at a national strategic level?
While weak thinking in military leadership could lead to bad strategy, misallocation of resources, bureaucratic paralysis, stereotypical skills could be outdated tactics, an inability to adapt to new forms of warfare, relying on old doctrine that just doesn't work anymore.
Wow.
The implication is massive. So Zelazny is claiming that by using the same principles they use to fix an athlete's motion psychological optimization, they can improve the efficiency, the adaptability, the entire performance of a national army.
So it's reframing national defense entirely. The path to a stronger military isn't just more tanks or more planes. It's better psychological architecture within the organization itself.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary claim that connects the most personal issues to the most massive geopolitical structures by treating the army like one giant, complex mind that needs its software debugged. It positions the system as a universally scalable operating system for anything.
Okay, so now let's move into the specialized language that actually gives the service its name. We start to see this concept of natural intelligence. This brings us to skill number 9.
Right. Skills for activate technology. Natural intelligence between people.
The language here is so important. It calls it natural intelligence, and it specifically refers to it as a technology.
That's key. It implies that isn't just a vague philosophical idea. It's a systematic, repeatable, teachable method. It's a tool you can use to unlock a higher form of human capability.
And the fact that it's activated between people, that's the really interesting part. This isn't just about your own internal intelligence like IQ. It sounds more like an interpersonal or even a collective intelligence.
Yeah, I think of it as a tool for creating a much higher bandwidth of communication and collaboration.
Yeah.
Something that goes beyond the normal limits. It's about optimizing the psychological connection that a group of people share.
So if you think back to those groups we just talked about, a sports team, a family, an army unit, if you could activate this superior shared intelligence among them.
Their collective decision-making, their speed, their efficiency, it would all theoretically go through the roof. It's the ultimate tool for group optimization, and it's all born from each individual first fixing their own ideas.
And skill number 10 spells out the ultimate result of using this technology. It's just a flat-out statement of incredible ambition.
It is. It says, you can do impossible things by tools of technology.
Doing the impossible. This feels like the culmination of the whole system. When you put this next to the earlier spiritual claim about achieving miracles, it's almost like this is the technical side of the same coin. It's like the technology is the method for producing the miracle.
It dissolves that boundary between what we think of as spiritual power and what we think of as repeatable psychological tech.
So what does impossible mean here? Does it mean physically flying, or is it more conceptual, like solving a problem that has stumped scientists for a century?
I think the system suggests that our definition of impossible is just a psychological barrier.
Yeah.
It's a limitation created by our own weak thinking. The impossible is simply whatever our current flawed software won't let us achieve.
So by fixing the ideas and activating me, you're supposedly freed from those cognitive limits.
Yes. The system claims to give you the tools, the neat technology, to break through the recognized boundaries of personal, professional, and maybe even physical reality.
That's the ultimate promise. So if that's the goal, let's drill down into the very specific list of things it claims it can fix, because these must be the building blocks that were holding us back from the impossible in the first place.
Right, and this comprehensive fix list, which is detailed throughout the source material, is basically the operational manual for the Sosnodzny method. It tells you exactly which internal functions need to be optimized.
Okay, so it claims it can improve and fix thinking, feelings, imagination, creativity, belief, observation.
Let's pause on those for a second. Improving thinking is, standard self-help fare. But claiming to fix your creativity or your belief, that suggests you can alter the deepest parts of how a person generates new ideas or understands what is true.
And you highlighted observation. I think that one might be the master key.
I think so too. If your ability to observe is flawed, if you're trapped by those stereotypical skills of perception, then every single thing you do after that is built on bad data. All your learning, all your decisions will be off.
It's the input. Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. So fixing your observation, making you see reality more clearly, is arguably the first and most important step. It's the prerequisite for fixing your ideas, which is the prerequisite for building your muscles. The whole chain starts there.
And the list doesn't stop with the cognitive. It extends right into our physical functions and daily habits. It shows that total integration is required.
Right. The source also says it can fix sleep, motion, voice, eat, drink, and more.
It just brings it all together, every single dimension of your life, from the highest mental function like creativity to the most basic biological need like sleep, is treated as an output of your internal software. And therefore, it's all fixable through this one system.
The source sums it up perfectly. It says, I will release you from stereotypical skills, overthinking, weak thinking, negative feelings, or ideas.
And what's the end result of all this, after all this intense internal repair and skill building?
Well, the source material brings it back to something very simple and very human. It promises the client that improving skills makes you happy and active.
So the outcome of doing the impossible, of fixing your mind, of achieving miracles, isn't just power or enlightenment for its own sake. It's fundamental human contentment, happiness, and activity.
It ties the massive, almost unbelievable scope of the project directly back to the individual's daily lived experience. The promise is that total system repair leads to total human satisfaction.
The ultimate summary seems to be that one phrase: fix your skills, ideas, feelings, motion, voice, etc. A promise of total cognitive, physical, and spiritual repair.
That's it in a nutshell.
So we started with the individual philosophy. You are your first doctor. We explored this incredible list of skills, promising everything from personal miracles to military improvement. Now we have to zoom out one last time to the ultimate global vision that this whole project is aiming for.
And the scale here is, again, just unprecedented. The source lays out this incredibly ambitious goal and even ties it to a specific timeline. It says, our task in 2021 is to program the minds of all peoples with good ideas and views.
That word, program, it's so loaded.
It is.
It's a direct callback to fixing the individual's internal software. So if one person needs their mind reprogrammed to get over weak thinking, then by extension, the entire global population needs to be programmed to get over our collective societal flaws.
And the stated goal of this mass psychological programming is completely utopian. It says the purpose is in order to live in peace without problems and diseases.
This is such a radical way of looking at global intervention. The Sosnodzny system seems to see itself as the ultimate solution to war, to conflict, to illness. The root assumption is that all of these things, whether it's a physical sickness or a geopolitical crisis, are ultimately just symptoms of flawed, weak, or negative ideas that humanity holds collectively.
It takes that core personal philosophy, build your ideas before building muscles, and it elevates it to a mandatory global strategy. Peace isn't going to be achieved through treaties or politics. It's going to be achieved by a unified psychological upgrade of the entire human race.
So the personal journey of repair is just the proof of concept, the template for repairing the world?
That's exactly it. Your personal success, is the beta test for the global mission.
What's really interesting, though, is that even with this massive task in 2021, there's an immediate acknowledgement that it's not a one-and-done job.
Right. The source also includes the line, "Sosnozni, our task never end."
So what does that imply?
It implies a perpetual mission, a permanent mandate. So even if there's this goal for a huge foundational global shift, the 2021 programming project, the system knows that the human tendency to develop new forms of weak thinking or stereotypical skills means the work is never finished. The global operating system will need constant maintenance, constant updates, just like an individual's mind does.
Which ties back perfectly to that three-part service model we talked about at the beginning: learning, following, and fixing. It's a cycle that, when applied globally, never stops.
And that brings us back to you, the learner. How does this huge, almost unimaginable global ambition
Yeah.
actually relate to someone just starting their personal journey?
It connects everything. Your own individual mastery, fixing your skills, building your ideas, mastering your observation. It's the microcosm.
Your personal success becomes the proof that the global mission is even possible. If the system can achieve total repair for one person, it demonstrates that it's viable to program the minds of everyone for peace.
It really elevates the stakes of personal development. Your decision to, improve your voice or release overthinking isn't just for your own happiness anymore. In this framework, it's a foundational step toward achieving global peace. That's a lot of weight to put on a self-help program.
It is, and it always loops back to that first principle. You're your first doctor. Even the biggest, most utopian goal starts with the smallest, most difficult task, fixing the software running in your own head. The individual has to lead the way.
What an incredible journey. We've taken what looks like a chaotic pile of social media posts, this Senusione, and we've structured it into a full-blown philosophical system, one that promises everything from spiritual miracles to military enhancement, and from total psychological repair to world peace through mind programming.
It's the very definition of a deep dive. By breaking it down, starting with that radical philosophy of self-responsibility, then mapping out the 10 staggering skill categories, and finally looking at the neat technology in the global mission, I think we can finally start to grasp the full, startling scope of what Sosnozni is claiming to offer.
Okay, so to wrap this up, let's nail down the key takeaways for you, the learner. The Sosnozni system from Mahmoud Ghazal is built on this dual philosophy. First, you have to prioritize your intellectual architecture. Build your ideas before building muscles.
And second, that ultimate responsibility is always on you. As the source says, you are the only one who can offer you help.
The services themselves claim ingest, an unprecedented breadth, promising total release from things like overthinking and weak thinking, while at the same time claiming you can master your physical motion, your voice, and even achieve spiritual miracles by Allah as prophets.
And that whole system is based on that iterative cycle. Learning, following your results, and then fixing your results. It's designed for constant, perpetual self-optimization.
And maybe the most shocking part is how it integrates what sounds like the impossible, activating this Nina natural intelligence and gaining the ability to do impossible things with it.
Right. And all of that personal mastery is then framed as the necessary groundwork for the ultimate goal. Programming the minds of all peoples with good ideas to create a world of peace without problems and diseases.
Yeah.
It challenges our basic assumptions about what a human being can achieve, let alone what a single service can deliver.
It really does. It suggests that all our limitations are really just bugs in our thinking waiting to be fixed. Okay, so for our final provocative thought, based on all this source material, if the ultimate prize of the system is being able to do impossible things with this new technology, and knowing that every single step starts with fixing a specific flaw in your own personal software, which internal impossible skill or change from their own list would you target first? Would you start by mastering your observation, fundamentally improving your voice for your career? Or would you go for the total release from all forms of overthinking? According to these sources, picking which idea to fix first is the starting gun on the race to the impossible. Something to think about until our next deep dive.